This is Freemasonry in the Bakken podcast, episode 5. This is part 1 of our interview with Grand Master David Bickel from the Grand Jurisdiction of North Dakota. I'm Nolan Overton, a Master Mason Shriner and Order of the Eastern Star member.
And this is Dr. Robert Bear. I'm a Master Mason and member of El Ziegel Shrine.
And I'm Tyler Hall, a Master Mason, Shriner, Eastern Star member, and Senior DeMolay.
The views, opinions, and thoughts shared on the show are that of the individual host or guest and not intended to represent the entire show, other co-hosts, Freemasonry, independent body, or Grand Jurisdiction as a whole. We try to have as much accurate and correct as possible, but reserve the right to be human and make mistakes. If you feel we have a wrong fact or have a difference of opinion, we encourage you to contact us via our contact page on the website for a mature, friendly discussion on the fact or topic. Now we have the North Dakota Grand Master, David Bickel, on Skype with us. Hello, Grand Master. Good to have you with us this evening.
Hello, it's good to be with you fellows.
It is, I hope I speak for all three of us. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you on here. And we really appreciate all the support you've shown our fledgling podcast up to this time. Well,
you're doing a lot for Masonry in the western part of the state. And actually, the effect is going well beyond the western part of the state because people are taking notice of not only the technology, but the interaction that you guys are developing. So I thank you.
When we started this podcast, I told the Brother Tyler and Brother Bob that I had hoped to have you on within our first 5, and we barely made it. So we hope this will be a long-lasting relationship, having you on from time to time, not just to know who you are, but when you have something important to talk about or something to push to the brethren of North Dakota and beyond, you'll let us know and we'll have you on.
Well, I like that approach because that's kind of my approach to leading Masonry in North Dakota. It's kind of a direct and hands-on approach, and I can't think of anything more fitting than these podcasts for doing that.
So what you're saying is you want your own podcast, right?
Yeah.
Well, to start out with, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been a Master Mason, and where were you raised, and what was it like for you to start out as a Master Mason?
Well, I was raised in 1980, and here in Bismarck, in Bismarck Lodge number 5, and my background before coming in was not particularly weak or strong. My father and maternal grandfather were both Masons and not extremely active, but Masonry was an important part of their life. And I really didn't consider joining the craft until I moved to Bismarck. And here again, like I think everyone else, it takes someone to, recruit you or prod you saying, well, now's the time to join. And that's what it took with me.
What other appendant bodies are you a part of?
Well, I am been a very active member of the Scottish Rite over a number of years. I hold the honorary 33rd degree. I several years ago joined the York Rite, and am getting more active with those bodies. And for a long number of years, I've been a Shriner.
Grandmaster, could you tell us what other esteemed positions you have held in your local lodges, your local lodge, Grand Line, or appendant bodies?
Well, I have served as the master of Lewis and Clark Lodge 132 in Bismarck 2 different times. And, of course, as you know, that's a requirement for Grand Lodge office.
Right.
I've been active and served as principal officers in pretty much all of the Scottish Rite bodies. in Grand Lodge. I've served on committees, served for several years as Grand Lecturer, and that, of course, is before being elected to the Grand Line, and I like to say, beginning my 3-year apprenticeship to be Grand Master.
What is your most memorable or first memorable? I guess it's hard to say your most memorable. I'm sure you've had plenty of memorable moments. But what was one of your first memorable moments as being a Master Mason?
That's an interesting question, and the answer may surprise you. It's when in the second section I was led in and seated in the junior warden seat, as we all have, and started the second section. I said, "This is neat." And maybe I'm a ham or something. I don't know, but that's my first distinct memory.
I can definitely relate. I still find a lot of quality out of the Entered Apprentice and the Fellowcraft to this day, and it brings, I think, especially with the Entered Apprentice, every time I help put the Entered Apprentice on, that same feeling that I had when I went through that degree comes back to me, just knowing that they're feeling the same thing. When, as you're going through the ritual, as the steps progress, even before the second section, you can relate with them. So I think for me,
one of the earliest memories that I guess is lasting and abiding was the two other fellas that I was grouped with, and how we worked on our proficiencies. That developed a bond that helped, and probably if I hadn't have been recruited very early on to become a part of the line in Lodge 132, probably that initial bonding with a couple of other Masons as we worked on our proficiencies probably would have been the one thing that would have held me, close to the craft.
Have you had any interactions, Grand Masters, with other Grand Lodges and other Masons outside of North Dakota that's been a memorable experience for you?
Well, they all are, because that's really one of the jobs of the elected officers, is to develop and maintain ties with their counterparts in other jurisdictions. So you develop close ties with the Grand Lodge, principal Grand Lodge officers, well, in our instance, in South Dakota, Minnesota, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. These sort of things are important. It's important to the craft, but it's very important to your workings as a leader of Masonry in the state, because you learn from these other men, and they learn from you. So, yes, those interactions and those ties are there.
Right. And I think it's, a good reminder of just what it means to travel as a Mason. When I became a Master Mason 9 years ago, I very, very rarely did I travel. I maybe went to a few local lodges within my own district, but now seeing all the brothers moving into the Bakken shows me just what it is to be a traveling Mason almost from both sides. And I can almost imagine the camaraderie you might feel when you travel to other grand jurisdictions to make those contacts on a greater level, representing the entire state of North Dakota.
If there's one thing I would like to see the Masons of North Dakota do more of, is travel. Now, the Masons in the western part of the state are almost forced to. We don't have a high population density, and we have long distances that we have to travel over. So, yeah, we are traveling men. But the values, as you point out, are great. And they're just as important in every other section of the state.
You know, well, how can I say this? We've had quite a few traveling brothers attend the lodge here in Dickinson as of recent. And even though on a social level they like to point out the differences they might see between where they came from, it's without a doubt they're very quick to point out the similarities and the brotherhood that they feel with allowing them into our lodge and whatnot. So, okay, now I have the question. Well, I'd like to say question.
Go ahead.
No, you go first. I've got a whammy of a question coming up for you, so I'll let you finish your thought first, Grandmaster.
Oh, I think it got lonesome and went away. I don't know. Go ahead.
I apologize. Okay. Could you describe what your life would be like if you weren't a Master Mason?
No, I couldn't.
Fantastic answer.
Let's explain. You do the math. Like I said, I was initiated, passed, and raised in 1980. Masonry has been an integral part of my life and personal history for so long, I don't think you can logically separate the two. I probably would have had less polish. This is one thing we don't emphasize enough, and that is how being active in a lodge, especially going through the chairs, is as good a training as you could possibly get in Toastmasters. It's good leadership training. I think without that, I would probably be the same person, have the same interest, but I'd still have a few more rough edges. That's the best way to put it.
You know, and I can relate. I'm active in my Cub Scout pack as an assistant Cub Master, and they're always asking, are you okay standing up in front of a group of people? I just look at them and say, you know what, I have absolutely no problems. There's nothing you can throw at me that I won't be able to handle as an assistant Cub Master. And I attribute that to being a Master Mason.
It is. And we don't emphasize or sell this enough. The values of a lodge, especially going through the chairs and being active in it, are great. It's some of the best leadership training in the world. And I would stand our success rate in terms of training leaders alongside those rates of, West Point, Sancerre, whoever. Masonry does a good job, and I don't think we emphasize that enough.
Well, I agree with that. And then our last show, we started with the 3 principal tenets of Freemasonry: brotherly love, relief, and truth. And I think by us living with those principles, we learn to be better people. And again, I think we need to constantly live that every single day. And what would you say is the best way for us to do that?
Well, it is a personal thing, and it is important. Basically, brotherly love, relief, and truth is our stock and trade. That's all we have to offer a man. These tenets and a way of life that supports their use. And it's important now because we have a generation of men coming to Masonry who expect to see the basics exemplified in lodges and in Masons that they meet. You know, fellows we have coming now probably know more about Freemasonry, at least in terms of its history and its background, from the web, from social media, than probably a lot of our members. And what that spells out is our reputation. And our job right now is to live up to that reputation. And it's important because that's what's going to hold the members who are coming to us now.
And that's your program for this year, isn't it? The Back to Basics of Brotherly Love, Relief, and Truth?
Sure. And I thought long and hard, well, this is nice. There's a real need for it. But how to distill that down? What's the essence of it? And I've determined that it is mentoring. And I use the term, you've probably seen it in a few places, starting to show up on the website finally. It's lifelong mentoring.
Okay.
We think about when we see a man, we say, that fellow would make a good Mason, and we approach him in a way that's comfortable for both of us and maybe develop his interest. That is the beginning of mentoring. We've found a fellow who should be a part of the craft and help him along his way. And then most people, when they think of mentoring, they think about, well, help them learn the proficiencies and then maybe invite them to come to lodge for the first time. Mentoring is, as you know, a lot more than that. You don't invite a guy to come to lodge. You pick him up and you bring him and make him feel comfortable. And you're a friend and a counselor and a guide to that man. And you say, well, okay, this is nice for a new Mason. Well, the same thing applies to a 50-year Mason. In fact, if a lodge wants to do probably the best job of exemplifying brotherly love, relief, and truth, they could make a deliberate effort to make sure that every man in that lodge has a mentor. And I think every one of us, we need to stop and think. If you aren't a mentor to someone now, maybe you should be. And if you don't have a mentor, maybe you should get one. And once we get that one-on-one bond across the craft, we can forget about our retention problems. There won't be any. That is the essence of, I think, brotherly love, relief, and truth. We're a big support group. We're nothing more.
I would agree with that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's the truth. How else can you talk about truth, or, as most people relate to the term, personal enlightenment? How can you talk about that in a band of men, a fraternity, a band of brothers with different religious and philosophical backgrounds any other way? We're a support group. I don't care what you believe. I'm going to support you in your quest for finding enlightenment. You're going to support me. That's it.
I like the idea of...
That's the end of the sermonette. I'm sorry.
Well, I like your idea of being able to reach out, but because what better way to bring brothers back into the lodge than to have active brothers reach out and say, I want you to come back with me. We want you. We all have something in common. We all share this love for who we are, and we are a fraternity, and regardless of our differences, we all believe in the same. So come back.
You guys exemplified that. I hate to take this down to a personal level, but I think it's something that needs to be shared with the listeners. I was privileged to attend your first tiled lodge in Dickinson Lodge in a long number of years, I believe. And in the course of that lodge meeting, you addressed the question of brothers who were maybe arrears in their dues, maybe in uncomfortable situations, and probably needed the lodge's help. And you came up with a novel idea. You said, well, hey, we have to kick in so much money, and that was the deal at the time. You have to kick in so much money each meeting to pay for our lodge hall. Why not kick in an extra $1 as a fund to keep these brothers among us? Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, you guys have the answer. And it's as simple as that. And I thank you for that inspirational moment.
Well, thank you. And as a follow-up, that's been a very successful program. We've been able to pay rent, and we have enough to cover the brothers who are needing some relief from the lodge. So, even the visiting brothers, when they see that, have been very generous in their offerings to help, their fellow brother Masons. So we're very proud of that. Thank you.
Well, you should be.
And I just want to touch on, a couple topics you brought up, Dave. Most worshipful is we're talking about leadership skills and public speaking, that sort of thing, as well as the lifetime mentoring, and that kind of brings me to think about my passion, which is Masonic youth, and
right.
And I was just wanting to know your opinion about the promotion of the Masonic youth groups.
Well, you may or may not be aware of it, but this year I have pushed, Tyler, I'm sure you are, because
yes.
you were sucked up in the maelstrom.
No lead in there, Tyler, no.
I set as a goal a few weeks before Grand Lodge, I was going to try to get DeMolay in North Dakota revitalized. And I won't go into the details of the situation, but at the same time, at Grand Lodge, before I could press the issue, I had several brothers from the western part of the state, independent of one another, come up to me and say, hey, I'd like to get DeMolay going. And I figured, well, what we needed was someone in the western part of the state to pull this energy together and get it organized. And I guess somehow you drew the short straw, but
I think it was a long straw.
The long straw. The important thing is that you fellows are starting to make it move, and my approach to leadership, my approach to action is just that. I am pretty poor organizer. I am fairly adequate in many respects, but one thing I do well, I'm a cheerleader. And that is basically, I think, what a leader has to do. He has to inspire and influence people to accomplish organizational goals. So If I can get you guys going in the western part of the state, you're successful. Your success will filter eastward, infect, if you wish, other areas, and DeMolay will start to grow again.
Right, and I think you're right there. And, if anybody needs more information about that, we might have another show on it. But contact me via our show.
We'll have you back with us, Grandmaster, when we have the show. Sorry, Tyler, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to shout out to the Rainbow for Girls. Our youth groups can't do it, all alone. And, Here in North Dakota, I will do a shout out to the Job's Daughters too. In North Dakota, we don't have any Bethels here, but I know they might be listening in other jurisdictions.
Yes, and I didn't address DMLA largely because I think they needed the opportunity to revitalize. Rainbow is doing great in the state, and
right, and they'll be a good help too.
We are very proud of what they do.
Yeah, we need them as much as they need us, I think. So,
and it's important. Youth needs youth to succeed, and we can be there as mentors, as guides. We can ease some of the process of their meeting, their interacting, but they need one another.
And we would like to thank Dickinson Family Counseling Center for their use of their extra office they have. They're your first choice for a healthy mind, and you can contact them at 701-483-9702.
And if you know of any Masonic or appendant body activities coming up in the Bakken area, you can visit our website at www.bakkenmasons.com and click on the trestle board. If you have any comments or suggestions on an episode, you can contact us at our website, our Facebook page at facebook.com/BakkenMasons, Twitter at BakkenMasons.com, email us at contact@BakkenMasons.com, or leave us a voicemail at 701-484-1512. And if you are discussing a show, topic, or the podcast with friends online, we encourage the use of the hashtag BakkenMasons.
The time has come for us to say goodbye. So for Brother Nolan, Brother Tyler, and myself, we'd like to wish all our listeners and their families a happy Thanksgiving. For those of you who are traveling home for the holiday, may the Almighty bless you with safe travel and the making of fond memories while visiting your family and friends. For you who are working and cannot travel home for the holiday, our thoughts and prayers are with you. We'd like to thank you for listening and look forward to you joining us again. We would like to thank Grandmaster David Bickel for being on our show today. Next week we will be presenting part 2 of our discussion with the Grandmaster. Until then, be Masonic proud. And now I leave you with these parting words. In order to celebrate this Thanksgiving holiday, I feel it's only fit to confirm upon you the knife and fork degree. I do not attend the meetings, for I have not the time to spare, but every time they have a feast, you'll surely find me there. I cannot help with the degrees, for I do not know the work, but I can applaud the speaker and handle the knife and fork. I'm so rusty with the ritual that it seems like Greek to me, but practice makes me perfect in the knife and fork degree. The sign for that degree is an open mouth. The word for that degree I would tell you, but then that means I would have to feed you. So instead, I leave you with this Thanksgiving blessing. O Lord, now this we're thankful for, the good things life has held in store, the love of those within our home, and friends to greet wherever we roam, the health and strength wherewithin to toil, the bounteous food from freedom's soil. We thank thee for the right to pray and worship thee in our own way, to live within a land that's free. For this, dear Lord, our thanks to thee. And through these blessings, one by one, may thy will, Lord, on earth be done. So mote it be.